Welcome back, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed your break. So we're moving on to the second part of the afternoon's events. We're moving on to talk about the standards work stream in Speed. And Ria, a number of years ago, was involved in helping establish the Network Rail Standards Challenge. So I'm really keen to see how that is going to be sped up with Project Speed. So to tell us all about that, I'm pleased to introduce Tom Chapman, Business Change Manager at Network Rail. Tom, can I hand over to you?
Of course, thank you very much. Can you see my screen? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Brilliant. So thanks for engaging in your interest today. My section is around standards challenge, and that's the theme we'll be looking at. So the key question we're asking is, where do standards add time and cost into projects? Sponsoring this work stream is Andrew Murray, who's the Dean for Eastern, and Alan Ross, who's the Dean for Scotland. So it's great, we've got two really senior people in the business really driving this and right behind our programme. To introduce myself, so Tom Chapman, I'm recently a programme manager now in the Centre of Excellence, working with Mike and team, and really trying to lead this forward as best as possible. I'm really passionate about Standards Challenge, and the reason behind that is because when I first started in Network Rail about 6 years ago now, I had what I felt was a really good idea for an efficiency, and I found it extremely tough to get that idea to the right people, get the voice heard, and then get it changed. I'm really pleased to say that it's changed now, and it's a lot easier than what it has been. However, it made me really passionate about standards. So when this opportunity came up, I jumped at the chance to get involved and hopefully try and ignite the whole of the rail industry behind this, and see where we can drive efficiencies, no matter whether people are EGU level, executives, or whether people are working on the track, or whether you're a contractor, etc. If you've got a good idea, we want to hear your good idea, and we want to see where standards add time and cost of projects, and then what we can do to try and fix that. As part of this presentation, we've got some polls. What I'm asking people to do is to innovate and to think differently. So I thought it was only right that I live them values myself. So when the polls come up, it'd be great if you can engage in them and just give us some instant feedback, and we'll see how they work. So that's the idea. So the agenda, firstly, I'll just talk really quickly about what is a standard and why is having standards important in Network Rail. Secondly, we'll look at what we've done previously in Standards Challenge, as David says, both internally and externally. So what's the current position? And then lastly, we'll have a look at what we're looking to do through Project Speed to try and get more challenges into the business and try and remove areas where standards add time and cost in projects. So key outputs from the session, hopefully in 20 minutes or 30 minutes time, we'll recognise that hopefully Network Rail is really open to the challenge. We want to hear about the opportunities that you see, that you feel the pain on day in, day out, or the opportunity you see which just really you think there's a time and cost benefit there to the projects. We want you to feel empowered to challenge. So as I said, whether you are an executive or whoever you are in the business or in the rail industry, if you've got that good idea, we want to know about it. And the great thing with the size of Network Rail, however small the idea is, when you multiply it up over multiple sites and multiple projects, it becomes a really big idea. So we're not just after the big silver bullets. If there's some smaller ones in there, we really want to hear them as well. And lastly, I want you to understand how to challenge. So if you've got a good idea, how do you challenge it? What do you have to do? What's the current process, and how can you get involved? So there are three key outputs I like from the session. So firstly, we'll go to the first quick poll. So how many times was a Network Rail standard downloaded from the standard website last year? So we've got 50,000, 100,000 or 750,000. So if you'd like to just quickly post your answers. And we'll see if the forms are working. Oh, brilliant. 100 responses. Fantastic. So the answer is 750,000, which is quite an incredible amount of time standards were downloaded. So it just shows you the real importance that standards have to Network Rail in the business. So what is a standard? So standards are essential to Network Rail. They govern hundreds of standards across a number of different disciplines we've got across the whole of the business. And they really are a knowledge bank and a source which has been built up over many years. However, this doesn't mean they can't be challenged. They're there to keep everyone safe and ensure high levels of practice are kept. And ideally, we look to try and update them every 5 years. Within a standard, there's different types of RAG assessments. So red clauses, amber clauses and green clauses. Green clauses are for guidance. Amber clauses are requirements. And then red requirements are the must-dos, if you like, within it. So we can vary against the ambers. And we can also put variations against reds, provided we give a good justification. But ambers are more what we're looking to vary against. So second poll, so how many of you are aware that you can challenge our standards? And secondly, how many of you have challenged a Network Rail standard? So I'll just flick over to the forms page. And thank you for your engagement on the first one. That was brilliant, really good. Okay, great. So from the data so far, so we've had 12 people respond. So everyone's aware you can challenge our standards, and it's 50-50 if people have challenged standards. Let's give it one more refresh. Oh, here we go. So 47 response. So 44 are yes, which is a good amount. So you know you can challenge our standards, and 19 have. So thank you very much. So 3 different types of challenge we can offer. So a variation pending standard change. So this is where we're looking to actually change the standard itself, where we think there's an opportunity and we can change it for the better in the future. So when the next time the standard gets updated, there's a new way we can work. But in the meantime, we can offer a variation pending standard change, which means we can work in that new way in the meantime whilst we're waiting for the standard to be updated. A derogation, which is more site specific, where you can actually derogate against the standard just for that site. So we're saying actually the standard's good, but for this site we need to do something slightly different, and this is what we need to do, and it's what we'd like to challenge on. And lastly, a temporary variation where it's time-based. So we're going to comply with the standard, but it's going to be over X period of time, whether that be 2 weeks, 6 weeks, a year. So that's the temporary variation. So 3 types. What we're looking for really is if we can find the variations pending standard changes, because they're the real big opportunities which can affect the standards moving forward. So why challenge a standard? So I think Mike touched on it earlier, which is brilliant. So Network Rail is obviously taxpayer funded, and we've got a duty not to waste taxpayers' money. So if somebody's got an idea which is better than the current way of working, we really want to hear about it. If the idea is faster than the current way of working, again, we want to hear about it. If it's cheaper and there's an opportunity for us to save money, again, we really want to hear about it. And if it's safer in the current way of working, again, we really want to hear. So, and as Mike touched on, the safety must be the #1 priority for whatever we do in the standards challenge. We don't want to make things not safer. But if there's an opportunity to be safer and do things better, faster, cheaper, we want to hear about it. So how to currently challenge standards? So we've currently got the external challenge process set up, which is part of the value for money engineering as part of Open for Business programme, which was set up by Brian Tomlinson and the team and David Ollerhead, which is brilliant. It's gone really well. We've had some really good challenges put in through that process from contractors, which is great, and it's really seen some value that's come out of it. We've also got the internal system where you can submit an application through the tracker system, and that will go straight to the standard owner, and the standard owner can make a decision on whether they want to accept or reject the application. So both methods are working currently. What we're looking to do is really bring that to the forefront and get people's minds thinking about standards challenge. The data, so we can see that the trend line, the number of variations pending standard change have doubled since 2017. So there is a real appetite for challenge, for revolting, as Andrew puts it, and trying to do things differently. So that's a real positive trend that we're starting to see across Network Rail, which also is the help of the contractors as an industry as a whole. We can see year upon year, 2020 was the best year for variations pending standard changes. So we've got the most of them put through in that period of time. and it's a real positive reflection on the work Open for Business has done, but also as a, internally through Tracker and people's mindsets, rather than accepting that it's the way we always have to do it, people thinking outside the box, is there a different way we can do it, and what can we do differently, and what's the opportunity? And likewise, the openness of standard owners to accept the ability to change and vary against their standards. And a bit at the bottom just shows you a couple of standards which are most frequently variation pending standard changes are requested against. Derogations. So again, the derogation trend keeps climbing, which is good. So people are starting to, again, think differently, think outside the box and see where opportunities lie outside of the standard and what they can do differently, starting with challenge rather than how can we comply, what's the best way of doing it, what's the safest way, what's the cheapest way, etc., and then working out the derogation from there. In terms of the different standards which have been derogated against, so they're the top 5, if you like, standards which are consistently derogated against over the last 2 years of data. And the external challenge process, so David mentioned this earlier, so I think it's been a real success of the Open for Business programme, which was launched in 2018. We've seen a good number of standard challenges coming through that process, which is what we want. Now, as Open for Business, we want to hear about the opportunities you guys as contractors, but also our internal people have got to revolt and do things differently. So just a couple of case studies and examples what has been put through. So the voltage control clearances at Cardiff, that was one of the really big wins, if you like, from a standards challenge and the application of the standards point of view. And it follows through down to line side access steps, etc. And these are some really great opportunities which contractors have challenges on, have been accepted, and we're doing something differently. And this is a great example from one of our internal colleagues, and it just shows you the simplicity of some of the challenges. So Fraser Brown in Scotland has said that for track monitoring for certain GI works, there's not a requirement to go out 4 nights to do the work, what was previously 1 night could do due to new technology. It seems a real simple and easy idea, but actually when you start to multiply it up across the country in terms of labour time, it's a huge idea for Scotland and also for nationally. So it's not just the big silver bullets we're after, small ideas where actually we're going out to site when there's no need to do it or no added value of going to do it. Let's think differently, let's challenge it, and let's work in a new way. So project speed, and so what are we looking to deliver? So first thing we're looking to do is what we've done, set up business-led working groups to challenge our standards. So I'll talk to this a bit more in a second. The second one, which I think is really exciting, is around identifying current derogations or variations in the system which can be made national. So a great example of this is where one region has put in a derogation against a standard or a variation pending standard change, and actually they know about it, but actually if we made that knowledge national and everyone started to work in that different way, we could really see some value very quickly. So almost pulling off the shelf what a good idea is, rather than spending a long time trying to engineer it when potentially it already exists in the business. So we're looking at opportunities there and seeing what we can do. The last one is around delegated authorities. So what we're looking to do is take decision making as close to the work as possible. So this links really nicely into what Mike's doing as part of Project Pace and seeing how we can get people who are doing the work to be empowered to make their decisions where it is applicable and where it is possible. Hopefully this will then speed up the work and decision making, which then applies to speed principles as best as possible and start to really empower our people. So the ask today is we need you. We need your help. We need you to help tell us whereabouts you see an opportunity to remove time and cost in a project. Is there something that's unnecessarily causing you pain that actually if we did something differently, we could sort out and try and fix? No matter how big or small, it might be a massive £100 million idea, or it might be something small. But if we add up all the small ideas across the whole of the network, they become big ideas. So we want to know so we can help. What we're not saying is that every idea will go through a system and be accepted. There will obviously be reasons why we can't accept some ideas. However, we really want to hear what your thoughts are on where we can save time and costs in a project as part of Project Speed. So this is the business-led bottom-up approach we're looking at in terms of trying to drive standard change across the industry and across Network Rail. So what we've done is we identified the key stakeholders, and as you can see here, we've got the different teams in Network Rail and the contractors. What we've done is we've created a really simple form to capture the opportunities. So whereas Tracker and the other forms might require a number of different details, what we've done is tried to keep it as simple as possible and just tell us whereabouts and what standard you think the opportunities lie and what they might be. We're then looking to collate them, put them into a proposal, and use the working group we put together, which are from business-led SMEs, to understand what the size of the opportunity is. We then plan to deliver this in a sprint approach over a 4-week period to hopefully get a variation pending standard change submitted to the standard owner and hopefully accepted and a new way of working. So in terms of governance and framework, what we're looking to do, so ideas come from experts and SMEs around the business and externally from you guys as contractors as well. So that's what we're really looking to drive. The ideas from people who are doing the work, who see the opportunities and who can see the opportunity for time and cost reduction in projects. These ideas then get fed into the discipline-led working groups, which have got regional leads. They're then going to go and assess the opportunity and see which ones we think we should take forward in the first sprint to try and change and make a difference to the business. We've got a programme board who sit above the working groups, and they've got representation from all across the business, which is a really important part and allows us to remove any barriers we potentially might have, but also hold us to account to make sure we're delivering on what we say we're going to deliver. So an example of how it works, so currently we've stood up the electrification and the signalling disciplines, which is good, and then track and structures will follow, and then we'll look at other disciplines in the future. So what we're looking to do is get the ideas in from all stakeholders, internal and externally. So hopefully if you're working in them 2 disciplines, you've been contacted by a regional lead. If you haven't, please get in touch with me and we can then put you in touch with the right people to get your ideas heard. What we'd look to do then is we gather the ideas together, make sure we've got all the against the standard, present that back to the working group for the leads then to decide which ones they want to take forward, and we can take it to the technical head as a variation pending standard change and get that changed and working. In terms of timeline, so in true project speed fashion, we're looking to work quickly. So we've set up the working groups now, we're collecting and analysing all the challenges people have got, putting them into first sprints and second sprints and looking to deliver as quickly as possible. So again, a quick poll. So do you see any opportunity to challenge standards to reduce time and cost in projects? And would you now think about challenging that and coming forward with your ideas? So if I click over to the poll. Brilliant, that's 100% success rate so far, so fantastic. I'll just give people a couple more. Well, that's fantastic as a response. So I think everybody realises there's an opportunity to challenge standards and to reduce time and cost, so people see them opportunities. And if my maths is any good, I think that looks around 96, 97% would now challenge it, which is fantastic. So that's a great result. Oh wow, even better. So how to get involved? So we really need you guys to get involved, everyone to get involved as an industry to pull together to really see where the opportunities lie. So please engage with your regional engineer lead if they've come out to you and ask for your response or your opinions. If you're internal to the business, please submit a variation pending standard change onto Tracker and get that in front of the standard owners. Likewise, if you're external, there's an external challenge form which on Network Rail standard challenge website, which you can fill in, which looks like the attached. Or likewise, please get in touch with me, so tom.chapman@networkrail.co.uk, and I'll be more than happy to point you in the right direction and help you with the challenge and put that together into a tracker application to go in front of the standard owners, which is the ultimate what we want to do, to give visibility of your ideas. So at the start, the key outputs from the session were recognising that Aral is open to challenge. So hopefully that is the case. You can see that from the data and from what we're looking to do and the way we're looking to set up. We're really looking to galvanise the industry together, to pull together to come up with the challenges and get them realised. And what a great feat for an engineer or anyone to come up with an idea which has changed something and potentially save hundreds of thousands or millions of pounds for the taxpayer. So that's the ultimate aim. Hopefully you recognise that, and through Open for Business programme that we've done, that's been a real key front of that. Secondly, we wanted you to feel like you're empowered to challenge. So my example at the start, when I first started at Aral, I want people to feel like they can challenge, and we will listen to them, and we will put that through the system, and we will feed back at the other side of it where it comes. So please feel empowered to do that. We want to hear it. And lastly, hopefully you've understood how to challenge. So whether that's through regional engineers who are representing on part of Project Speed, that's coming to me directly, I'm happy to help, through the external challenge process or internally through the tracker process. There's loads of different ways we can do it. But please reach out if you do need any help on the right way. More than happy to help, and we'll back you and engage with you on that. So the last poll then out of the 6, I appreciate people engage on these so far. So following this brief, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to challenge a standard in the future? So I could be setting myself up for a bit of a fail here, but fingers crossed. It looks like my wife and my son might be the two that have responded so far and given me a 10 and a 9. Brilliant. So out of 24 responses, there's 8 out of 10 chance that or an 8.5 out of 10 chance that people will challenge a stand in the future. That's a terrific response. $72 up to 8, yep. Brilliant. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you really very much for your time, for your interest and your engagement in Standards Challenge. Hopefully you can see we're open to the engagement. We really want that. I'm really keen to help and support. I'm very passionate about challenging standards, about innovation, about trying to do things differently. So if there's anything I can help with, please do drop me an email. I'm really happy to engage. And if it's okay, David, I'll hand back to you for questions.
Thank you very much, Tom. That was really clear and concise, within the half hour, so well done. So that gives us a chance to work through some of the questions, of which there's a fair few, which I'm pleased to say. So we'll start with the most popular. So if you haven't asked a question, please feel free to give it the thumbs up if you see a question you like that you'd like to see get to the top of the list. So Tom, the first one is a good one. Have you shared the standards derogation list with your RAMs and project teams? These could be included in CRT for similar projects. You'll have to help me out as to what CRT is. Is that learning by experience or something?
Not sure, sorry. There's so many acronyms in NetAround. I'm not sure CRT. I'm not sure off the top of my head what that could be, but it's a really good point. It's something we're looking to do and share that knowledge around the business. As I say, we've got a really good almost library, if you like, of ideas that people have put through in terms of derogation and variations pending standard changes. So how do we just let everybody know about them and what the opportunities are? They're currently embedded into the tracker system, but it's about trying to get the ideas out of the tracker system and to the forefront of people are running projects, and you can see what some of the opportunities are. So we're going to use the working groups initially for that, for them to identify what they think potentially the top 5 or top 10 might be that are currently in the system, and then from there we can look to hopefully brief them out across the network so everyone's aware of the opportunities that are there.
Yeah. You mentioned the working groups. There was a question that came through asking why are there no talks on the working groups, and I could extend that to say, are there any suppliers on them?
So it's a really good challenge. So we initially thought that the best way to get it up and started, it's the first time we've done it, so we will evolve definitely in the future. So, but we've asked the kind of the region deans, if you like, to nominate their number 1 person in their region who could represent them for like electrification signaling. And the purpose of that being that then hopefully they'll have the best contacts to be able to go out to the contractors, to talks, to everybody, to start to see where the opportunities that lie within signaling and electrification. So I think the working group wants to keep it as small as possible, but likewise, it's not a kind of a done deal. We can change it in the future and adapt, and it's a pilot. So as soon as we see how it goes, we can definitely make a change in the future. But the key is that all the ideas get funneled into the one place, and we can then start to review them ideas and hopefully get some of them over the line as quickly as possible.
So a huge number of people clarified that CRT is contract requirements technical, which I now realise I knew that. But thank you for helping us. The next question up is. The standards library is huge and complex. Is there an opportunity to rework this to be simpler, aligned, less complex and easier to use? So in other words, instead of challenging individual clauses within standards, can't we just make the standards simpler anyway? There's less to challenge then.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's something that a lot of the working groups are discussing currently, is how can we simplify it. So again, that might be a really good challenge if someone sees something in a document that there's an awful lot of non-value add, if you like, in a document. How can we start to reduce that down? I think Mike might have said it earlier. Actually, we tend to just add more and more documents on every time something happens. So actually, one of the skills is how do we take some of the documents away which are not adding any value. So I know we're doing that as part of PACE, and I think the other disciplines are certainly looking to do that where possible. So if you do see that as an opportunity, please do challenge it. And I think it's definitely something I know people are looking to do in the business.
I think that's a really good strategic point, because it's an overarching principle that standards should be as slim and few as possible, which goes with a more outcome-based approach to life rather than a detailed specification approach to life. So I just within your work stream, you're trying to deal with the existing animal that is standards, but do you know whether there's any, where the thinking is going on in Network Rail or the wider industry? I mean, in my glance through Williams this morning, it talked about, one of the things it mentioned was, I can't remember the exact phrase, but it did say standards need to be simplified, or words to that effect, to stop gold plating, etc.
Yeah, there's a number of different things kicking off, I think, within Network Rail. The deans are trying to bring it all under as much as possible under Project Speed. But one of the things is revolutionising our standards, so looking to digitise them, so making it easier to people to update them and to find what they need within the standards. So that's being led by the technical authority currently. Our work stream is certainly, if there's an opportunity to challenge and remove that gold plating, like you mentioned, there's been some really great examples of challenges we've had so far where, this country are doing this, but we're doing something slightly different, or, we do this, but actually now, technology's moved on past the standard, which was, from like 5 years ago, 4 years ago. We don't actually need to dig as deep as what we needed to do before previously, for example. So I think there's so many examples of that, which we can hopefully tease out through engaging with the engineers in the contractors and in Network Rail. And that's the key part, really. We need engagement to find out where them ideas are and where people think the opportunities lie.
Because I thought, well, two things. One is, I'd like to think that Williams and the guiding body, when it eventually gets into place, will go up a gear in terms of the focus on outcome specifications and simplification. So I think that's something to watch. The next question we've got is about the time frame between submission of a standards challenge and the review and the decision of the implementation of the revised standard. Same question for derogation, and the punchline to that is this acceptable within speed? And I wonder if the anonymous questioner is hinting at it's maybe not terribly fast at the moment.
Yeah, I think the number of different disciplines are trying to speed up as best as possible. So I know, for example, I think Signalling now have a weekly meeting where they review the variations pending standard changes that have come in. So that's a really positive step, I think, in terms of trying to get them through quicker. I think typically what we tend to do a lot of is have a periodic meeting, which, it's great if you submit it the day before the meeting, but if you miss it by a day, it can be 28 days later. So, I think it's people are going in the right direction with that, and I think that's where hopefully our working groups will help, in terms of if we get the experts on that working group who can really give the tyres a kick before it goes into standard owner. Hopefully we're setting ourselves up for success when it goes in. Standard owner knows it's coming, and hopefully we can get it approved as quick as possible, and then start working in a new way for the business.
There's a question that's just come in, which is I'm just about to press the button to make it live, but I'll just read it as I do that. It says the standards challenge process is long-winded and often a mystery, as there's no one place. I guess that means one place to go to. Or go to challenge. We often don't bother challenging them. Standards often contradict each other. Andrew McNaughton put a standards freeze in place years ago, but the standards industry just brought in advisory notes. So there's a bit of history there where. So if we put aside the standards freeze, which, as the anonymous questioner highlights, just resulted in people continuing to write standards but calling them something different. But I think the fundamental question is, it's a bit of the challenge is it too opaque a process? Now I've got to sort of confess here that I actually sit on the standards challenge panel to represent supply chain, to see that, as it were, fairness is done. And what I can say is I see that panel really trying to move things forward, and fairness is being done. But I must admit, I'm a little bit disappointed about the numbers coming in. And actually, the answer to somebody else's question is I think it takes 80+ days to get something through the cycle, and that's so. What can we do to speed things up, Tom?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point. Anything to speed it up is a really good question. I think the technical authority are extremely busy, and we're trying to get it in front of them and get it decided as quick as possible. I think the panel that you sit on is great, and one of the things we hear a lot from the industry is that because it takes so long to get something through, we actually don't challenge on that project. Working with a team in Around currently, and they say it takes so long to get it approved, we don't bother, so we just apply the standard, which adds time and cost. And actually, then when we get to the end point, the next project actually don't benefit from that. So we're trying to change that as a bit of a values and a culture, if you like, of please do challenge it, and we'll get it through as quick as possible. I think it's a question probably for the technical authority, how can we get them any quicker? But I think what we're trying to do, and what we heard from customers and suppliers when we went out and did a bit of a research piece over 4 weeks at the start, when I first started, was actually the forms are quite difficult, and this is quite difficult, and there's a lot of different hoops you've got to jump through. So we've tried to really simplify that in the form and just say, tell us what standard, tell us what clause, tell us what you currently have to do, tell us what the opportunity is. We'll take that to a group of experts, have the experts approve it and endorse it, and then we'll get that in front of the standards team as quickly as possible. So I don't think there's an easy answer to that, but we'll certainly do everything we can as part of Project Speed to get the variations pending standard changes approved where applicable.
But I mean, a lot of the questions are around the existing process, and some of our answers have been around the existing process. Mm-hmm. But the big difference I see in your presentation is this bottom-up approach, where it's if I understand correctly, you're moving from a push situation where people out on the projects and in the supply chain push the idea of a standards challenge on an individual clause potentially towards you, to where you're going into a pull process where you're saying we're going to look at, you know, you gave the example of electrification, we're going to look at that whole arena and really try and challenge the totality of standards in that arena. Is that, and you're going to put a team in place to do that and over a compressed time frame? You know, is that the correct understanding?
Yeah, so we've identified, the deans have identified them 4 key areas which are large spend areas for NetRail. So we're looking at, for example, take signalling, anything that affects signalling discipline. The teams then set up to hopefully find them ideas from the supply chain, from our internal people, and then bring them ideas to a central point with this working group we've got, which are, you know, the SMEs and the leads throughout the business. They can then identify these standards. So from our last time we went out, they're kind of going to 4 different categories. So these are really good ideas and we need to progress these. These ideas are actually, it's the application of the standard rather than the standard itself. And that actually presents us with a really quick and easy opportunity. So actually you can do this because it's set of X, Y, and Z. So it's a bit more educational. The third part is around actually these ideas are already in flight and we're already happening in NetRail. So we just need to link the people up with the right people to help with different standards which are already getting worked on. And the last one is actually, you know, it's not an idea we feel like we should progress, and the reasons are X, Y, and Z. So the working group will hopefully put that together for us, and then we can, as a team, work with the individual who puts a challenge through. So if it's yourself, David, who puts a challenge through, we can work with you and get that into a variation pending standard change, which is endorsed by this group of experts. So when it goes to the standard owner, it's almost got the sign off from the business, if you like. It just needs a sign off from the standard owner for it to be correct.
Thank you.
And once we get that, we can work in a new way and hopefully start to see the benefits quickly.
So there's a question which I've just posted, which might have a quick answer. Is the Network Rail Standards Catalogue available now for everybody free? And the answer to that is yes. And where do you get it from, Tom?
It's the external website for NetRail has it, so I can maybe send the link out after this if that helps. Send it across.
That would be great.
Yeah.
So the next question I wanted to pick up was, does the move to regions make it easier or more difficult for standards to be challenged, do you think?
That's a really good question. I think there's definitely an appetite, more of an appetite for each region to start to challenge the standard and find the efficiency. So I'd say in that case, there's probably a bigger appetite from people wanting to do it. I think one of the things that really help is the workstream on delegated authorities. So currently, a lot of the authority to approve a standard change sits with the centre. And what we're looking to do as part of Project Speed with the deans is actually see where we can, where applicable, we can move that into the regions. So, for example, if there's a derogation for a project that comes in Wales and Western, actually they might be able to approve it themselves as long as it's within the delegated authority limit. So that should hopefully speed it up. So I think there's a real appetite for that across the business, and we're just doing that piece of work at the minute, as I say, which is sponsored by the Dean. So I think yes to your answer. There's a massive opportunity with the regions now setting up, but I think there's also got to be that collective piece nationally of how do we drive it, and that second bit we spoke about around different regions having delegated authority, different variations and different derogations. How can we bring that together? And actually, there's some great practice up in Scotland, which this contractors do, or this team are doing. How do we apply that in Southern and Eastern? So we haven't got one region working differently to others, when actually there's some best practice to be shared. And I think that's really the value of the centre, is to try and share that best practice where possible to let everyone benefit.
There's a question just come through which is close to my heart, which is saying basically at a tender stage, is it actually counterproductive for Network Rail to put in tender requirements that words the effect of "thou shalt be compliant with all laws and standards, including but not limited to a list," rather than, and I think that's lazy specification. You should actually say what are the standards that you think are applicable here. Do you have a view on that?
It's something that we've had some discussions. There's a contracts and procurement theme which is being led by Cameron Burns, and it's some of the discussions we've had with Cameron. There's a lady called Helena Brennan was part of the Open for Business team, and she's looking at high street principles, and something they've applied in the high street principles actually specifying certain standards which apply to it. So some of the contracts and procurement, we've had discussions with them on that. I'm not quite sure where Cameron's up to on his workstream, so I wouldn't want to comment too much, David, but it's definitely something they're looking at and they're aware of, and yeah, watch this space, I think, with Project Speed.
Okay, thanks. There's a question here from Tony Wilcock. Are the Standards Challenge working groups tied into the Subject Standards and Controls Steering Group, and can the Subject Standards and Control Steering Group be bolstered to provide resource to deliver an enhanced programme volume of standards to be changed, rewritten? I'm guessing that's an internal Network Rail group, the Subject Standards and Control Steering Group. So are you tied into that?
Yes, so we set up the signalling and electrification one so far. So we've had the meetings with the different groups with the leads on that one. So we're trying to tie everything in together as a network, and where possible, make sure we've got the right people to engage with. So I know Tony's done some brilliant work with us on the structures challenges which come in, which is really appreciated. So I think what we're looking to do, if you like, is get our team together to make sure what we don't do is send through loads of challenges to the technical authority and then bodies where actually they're getting rejected a lot of the time, because it adds a lot of time into their workload. So actually, can we do a check first to make sure the business supports it, and it almost goes forward with the business's support from there. Okay, thank you.
So just getting through, you've got plenty of questions here. So there's a question here from Craig Lulek, if I've said that correctly. I wonder if the variation derogation trends you have correlate to the types of projects that are happening at present. In our team, we've been doing a lot of platform extensions, which has contributed to a continued challenge of the standards. Yeah, just a question whether you are seeing hotspots for either, hotspots for lots of challenges, and Craig's suggesting you should be seeing a lot in the platform extension, or conversely, are you seeing cold spots where there's not the right number of, there's very few challenges compared to the work that's active?
Yeah, I think it's again a really good question. It's something we've not gone into that granular level of data, but I think I'm a data geek, so I think that would be really interesting to do. But what we've used the data for so far, hopefully just to inform the leads of the working group about where potentially opportunities are. So the platform lengthening, for example, if that standards has a lot of derogations against it, when we come to that part of it, we might be able to advise the working group or say, look, here's the data, here's what it looks like. And certainly what we've done for signal and electrification is show them the data and the derogations and the variations pending standard changes that are currently in the system, and saying which these are the standards that people are currently varying against. Our initial thought was actually to restrict it to 5 standards and kind of go after them 5, but in speaking to experts around the business, said, well, actually let's leave it open to anything that affects signaling or electrification. But I certainly think that the data is there on Tracker, which is really interesting. I know the technical authority do a great job of using that data to inform in the future, but we can certainly see where hotspots are, and not, like say, David, where they're not. My hypothesis would be that actually against the older standards there'll be an awful lot more derogations and temporary variations pending standard changes than potentially ones that were dated last year or 2 years ago. So that'd be my hypothesis, but yeah, you can certainly see a lot from the data and it's all there.
Thank you. There's a really good question here from Kev Robertshaw, which I recognise. I think this is a real issue. As Kev says, this isn't the first time we've tried to tackle challenge to standards as an industry. If we collectively engage in this and put the challenges through, how will NR resource the changes being made? There's a significant risk that we create a backlog of standard updates waiting to be delivered. And certainly I've observed that there is effectively a small group of people with significant day jobs for whom this becomes additional things in their in tray. So I do question whether we've got the resource to be able to do this expeditiously.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. I think what we're looking to do in the way we're working it is, if we can get the variations pending standard changes submitted and approved, almost what we're doing and is hopefully helping the people who are writing the standards to identify it. They almost become the remit, if you like, for the standard change. So when they're coming to update the standards in the future, actually, if we've got a few variation pending standard changes against that standard, you can kind of see where, you know, the industry see where the issues are within that. So hopefully that makes it easier rather than having to start from, you know, 0. Actually, we're starting from 4 or 5 because we've already got them standards challenges in the system, which have already been approved. So it's almost a drag and drop. So you can almost take that part out and put that part in because it's already been approved. So hopefully the more we do this, the more actually help out the technical authority. So when they come to update a standard, you know, if we've given it a really good kick in as an industry and saying, here's where we think the opportunities are, and it's been agreed by the standard owner for a variation pending standard change, when they come to update it in 18 months time or 2 years time or whenever that might be, actually you can just drag and drop a lot of the clauses over and a lot of the work's actually been done for you. So that's, you know, hopefully the way we see it, but I totally recognise it will be it is an issue, but hopefully that's one way we can get around it.
And presumably, if you do this bottom-up approach for more and more themes or more and more sort of asset classes, the implication of the bottom-up approach is it'll have to be resourced because you're effectively treating it as a project and making it somebody's day job for a period of time. I mean, is that not the thing we ought to all get behind? Is you working through an asset class in a project form and we, you know, going through the standards with a tooth comb and you know, both simplifying the standards and encouraging challenges from the supply chain and from your Network Rail colleagues.
Yeah, definitely. We want, you know, that's the purpose. What we're trying to do really is for people from the bottom up. So rather than it being a top down or, you know, centre led, it's right. You know, the people who are doing the work in the first place, please tell us where the opportunities lie. I think that comes from my experience. When I first started, I was actually doing the job and I could see where the opportunity was. So I think, how can we get people who are doing the work, who know where the opportunities are, to come forward with them ideas and tell us where they are, whether they're internal or external to Network Rail. You know, as soon as we can identify where the opportunities are, then we can try and fix them. Without knowing where they are, we can't try and fix them. So we need them ideas from the bottom up, and, you know, everyone to get involved with this and get behind it and tell us what they think the opportunities are, and we can hopefully try and do something about it. Yeah,
thank you. There's really straightforward question here. How are you going to communicate changes and assure adoption and embedment? Now, I guess eventually they'll get written into standard, but particularly as you derogate, how does anybody know you've derogated?
No, it's a really good point, and it's something that we've identified as part of Project Speed as one of our work streams, if you like, is how can we make them better known. So by using what we're hoping is by using the working group we've got who are based in all the regions, actually when a variation pending standard change is accepted, we can start to hopefully communicate that through their network, so we can start to work in a different way. But I think it's a really good question. It's something where actually it poses quite a big, rich opportunity currently in the system. If we can find, you know, ones that are in there, I think it's something we're looking at potentially as a centre of excellence to maybe offer that as a service to, you know, really highlight where the opportunities lie against what standards.
So to put an appeal in for the supply chain, I mean, very often the suppliers will be the originators of challenges. So first of all, to be fair, one of the questions that was asked earlier was how do we know what's been challenged already? And the answer is it's on the Network Rail website, and I put a link in so that people can refer to that. But how do you keep suppliers informed so they don't, you know, challenge something that's already been challenged, and they know how things are progressing?
Yeah, so through the external challenge process, as a team in Milton Keynes who actually manage that process through, so they communicate back out to suppliers. So when it comes in, they almost manage it through the system, and Amy's got a tracker of whereabouts each standard challenge is. Like I say, the visibility is on the website, and we're also working with a team to see if we can make visible the current variation pending standard changes we've got in the system, so, you know, everyone can have access to them, so we can see, you know, what currently is available within there. So that's something we're working on at the minute.
There's a closely related question which has just come in, which might have been prompted by the discussion we've just been having.
Yeah.
Which is, if we're storing up these changes until the next standards update, maybe 18 months ahead, how do current projects gain the benefit of the approved changes that have not yet been documented? And that's actually a better way of saying what I was trying to say.
Yeah. No, I think so. We're working with the team, with Nicole and her team, and we had a conversation actually with a supplier a couple of weeks ago, actually, when they raised exactly that question. So we took it back to Milton Keynes and the standards team and said, what can we do and how can we give people access? So I think we've got a way forward on that one, which will come out, I think, in the next set of briefings. But if I can take that as an action, I'll come back on that question with a definite answer.
That would be good. There's a comment just come in saying words to the effect of very often suppliers are better informed upon the issues or the opportunities to challenge things than the NR teams that they work with. I guess that, I mean, you might want to make a comment on it. My comment would be that goes to my point about engaging with the supply chain. So in your bottom-up approach, that's a real opportunity to engage with the suppliers in that particular asset class, I would suggest.
Yeah, 100%, and that's why I've asked the regional leads to go out to their suppliers who they're working with, whether that's in signalling or electrification, because, like I said, in my example right at the start, people who are doing the work know where the opportunities lie most of the time. So we really want everyone to get behind it and bring forward your challenge. I think when we did the polls in the presentation, it was fantastic to see how many people, do recognise there's opportunities and would get behind it. And I think if we can get them ideas into the system, and even if we get 10%, 20%, 50% of them change as variations, that's a fantastic result, and we're in a much better place than where we would be today. So I think it's also a bit of a snowball effect as well, Dave. So as soon as you start to get a few going through the system and people hear about them, we can start to get it rolling. And the team have done fantastic. The Open for Business guys have done great with yourself, to get them going with the external challenges. So how do we keep that going and really try and publicise it and keep it at the forefront of people's minds to revolt and challenge?
There's a cracking question here. It can't have come in very long ago because I think loads of people would have liked it, which is, who's looking at the impact of the introduction of new or updated standards to make sure that they're the ones that impact most on the cost of projects? So in other words, how do we prioritise? If we've got 100 standard challenges, how do we make sure we tackle the ones that are going to have the greatest impact on cost?
From a standards challenge point of view, or from a standards update point of view, sorry?
Either, I think, simply how do we make sure we're working on the most impactful things?
So from a standards update point of view, I don't think I'd be in a place to comment on that because it's outside of our remit. From a standards challenge point of view, that's where we've got the leaders, if you like. So Paul Percival for signalling and Dave Hewins for electrification. So they're leading the working group, and we'll ask the working group to put together their thoughts, and we can almost do a quantitative assessment, if you like, on what that looks like and where we think the biggest opportunities lie. And I think it's almost, in my head, it's almost a bit of a matrix. So the time taken versus the benefit, and we can almost plot that on the graph and see where we think the opportunities lie to go after in the first sprint, as 5 or 10, whatever we want to go after in the next sprint and the sprint after that. But I think we can certainly, we showed with Fraser Brown's examples, we can start to quantify the benefits. Even if they're really rough, we can start to quantify what they could be. So once we identify them 4 different parts and the ones we want to progress, we can then start to work on the benefits case and use that to inform our decision making.
Okay. How do we avoid groupthink? So no disrespect to Paul and Dave, who are both of whom I know, but with the best will in the world, there's always a risk. Whoever you put in place doesn't know everything. So how do you avoid a sort of groupthink situation? How do you get the best information and ideas in front of them?
So in terms of the ideas, what we've done is we've asked them to go out to the business. We've asked them to go out to their regional colleagues and to contractors. So the ideas won't just come from Dave or from Paul. They'll come from the business, which is the purpose of what we wanted to do. So the ideas will come. So if we get a really rich group of ideas, and the people we've got in the working group are from across kind of signalling. So some of them are engineers from the DEAM organisation, some are from the project environment, and some are from other areas. So there's a real opportunity for hopefully quite a rich conversation to take place there. And we've also got a few project engineering managers as well. So they almost look at the whole life cycle system engineering manager, I think they're called. So they'll help us almost look across the board. But once we identify the ones we think are good, we can engage with the technical authority and hopefully get them ideas put through, and then obviously they can make the decision on the acceptance or not of the variation pending standard change.
Thank you. There's a question or a request here which you might want to take away. It says the Network Rail website shows that SMEs can, and this is small and medium enterprises rather than subject matter experts, can access standards by requesting them one by one. Could this be changed to a portal like RSSB? And I think that's just a usability point. Because I think in the RSSB group standards portal, you put in the topic that you're interested in and all the relevant standards come up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something let me again take that away with the standards team and find out what the options are. And it'd be outside of my remit, but I can certainly take it up on behalf of the person who's raised the query. That's absolutely fine.
Right, so we've still got a few questions to go, which is good, and a few more minutes to answer them. From James McNaughton, how does one tell if a standards content, some or all, are or are not important if there's no guidance notes? Don't know whether this goes back to your RAG rating. There's an obvious risk of losing something important. In other words, many standards would be usefully fleshed out with guidance notes for project engineers and designers. So this is, I think, addressing the question. If you want a standards to be challenged, it might be helpful for people to understand why the standard is what it is. And certainly historically, some things have just been lost in the mists of time as to why the standard says what it says.
Yeah, I can't really comment on how the standards are written or what they include, if you like, but I guess that's almost, if you like, the purpose of the working group is then start to understand. So if that did come through as a challenge, for example, the working group might say actually it's the application of standard because of X, Y, and Z, or the technical authority might say it's the application of standard. So I guess if you're not sure about something, then please do challenge it. And if it, then we can almost clarify the reason why, if you like, or what was behind it. And as I was saying with the working group, I think that's equally as important, if you like, if not more important than the standard challenges, that we can actually, if it is the application that's the problem, it's a real kind of quick win that we can fix it.
There's right. I'm going to make this the last question, but it's a goodie. It's a point from Mark Lincoln, who says 30 years ago I was in the oil industry introducing innovation by allowing projects to introduce new products and technologies without needing to get both products approvals and deviations. So the point he's making is a relationship between products approval and standards regime, and it's a bit of a double whammy if you have a great new idea, and not only do you have to get it through you have to demonstrate it works, you have to get it product approved, and you have to change the standard. If we actually want to get beneficial innovation in, don't we need to deal with that all at once? And it seems from Mark's example, the oil industry cracked that 30 years ago.
Yeah, no, it's a really valid point, and I think the two obviously do go very closely together. We've had some engagement with the product acceptance team a while back on what their process would look like and how that could link in with ours. So it's something we are very much aware of, and we are looking to do with the team. So it's on our agenda to try and see if there is a link and if anything we can do. But we are talking to the team on it, and hopefully we can speed up that process if required. Or there might also be, I don't know, some opportunities potentially with delegated authorities. There might be some opportunities there. I don't know, but I couldn't really comment on that as it's not kind of in my remit, if you like. But it's certainly something we appreciate is linked closely to standards challenge.
But what's good in this discussion is it's flushed out hopefully some specific things that will help you, but also some more strategic issues.
Yeah.
Like that one with the relationship with products acceptance, and also the just the overarching point that shouldn't standards be much simpler and fewer in number, which is beyond your immediate remit, but I think very, very relevant to Project Speed. So Tom, that's been absolutely fantastic. You've kept going. You've had a marathon of questions. I think we've been asking you questions for 40 minutes. You might not realise.
It's my fault for whizzing through the presentation.
So thank you very much. No, but it just shows the level of interest of the audience in what you've got to say and in the topic, and making a difference through Project Speed. So thank you for putting up with that grilling, and for your presentation too. I'll just, on behalf of the audience, I'll thank you very much.
No, brilliant, thank you. And just if I can just say, please do engage with us. Please do let us know your ideas. The responses to the polls are brilliant, so I'm all ears. If I can help at all, it's tom.chapman@rail.co.uk. We really want to hear your challenges, and hopefully we can save some time and cost in projects. So no, thanks for the opportunity, David. We appreciate it.
Excellent, thank you. So up next at 15:40, we have Toby Patrick Bailey, Head of Planning and Performance at Network Rail, who's going to be talking to us about timetabling. He's not going to be talking to us about how you create a timetable. He's going to be talking to us about how we think about projects in the future, and how we consider the outcome that we're trying to achieve in terms of the trains we want to run at the end of that project, the timetable we want to implement at the end of that project. Start from that outcome and work back to understand what that means for the project. Now, all too often, I would suggest we've started from the engineering, the infrastructure engineering, and not really considered what we're trying to do, which is to run trains at the end of the day, having made that investment. So it shouldn't be turning it on its head. It should have been what we've been doing all along. But I think compared to the way some projects have gone forward in recent years, it is turning it on its head. So please come back at 15:40 to hear from Toby about how Speed is tackling that. So see you in 20 minutes. Enjoy your break.